With a potentially perilous exit from the European Union looming, many Britons face a squeeze on living standards, but for one group, it may prove particularly tough. Without changes, younger Britons risk becoming less prosperous than their parents' generation for the first time since the Black Death pandemic that ravaged the region in the Middle Ages, according to the country's Chancellor of the Exchequer, Philip Hammond, who delivered his annual budget on Wednesday. That danger could also prove critical for Mr. Hammond's Conservative Party. The divide between generations, long debated in Britain, became a newly urgent topic for the Conservatives after a general election in June, in which they unexpectedly lost their majority in Parliament. Young voters turned out in force for the opposition Labour Party, led by the left-wing Jeremy Corbyn. Mr. Hammond's announcements on Wednesday focused on housing, seen as a major factor in Britain's intergenerational divide. Older, asset-rich Britons have benefited from rising home prices, while many younger people have found themselves having to pay high rents rather than buy, particularly in London and southeastern England. The budget introduced on Wednesday abolished the stamp duty, a tax paid on home purchases, for first-time buyers of properties costing up to £300,000, or about $397,000, and on the first £300,000 of first-time home purchases up to £500,000. That measure, however, could result in higher home prices instead of more affordable real estate, according to Britain's independent fiscal watchdog, the Office for Budget Responsibility. It warned that the main gainers from the policy could be people who already own property and are able to sell for even higher prices. Mr. Hammond also promised £15.3 billion over 5 years for measures to encourage construction, and an inquiry into claims that developers were hoarding land on which houses could be built. The government was ready to use compulsory purchase powers as necessary, Mr. Hammond said. This is our plan to deliver on the pledge we have made to the next generation, that the dream of homeownership will become a reality in this country once again, he said. Responding to Mr. Hammond's speech, Mr. Corbyn, the Labour leader, described it as a record of failure with a forecast of more. Economic growth has been revised down, Mr. Corbyn said productivity growth has been revised down. Business investment revised down. People's wages and living standards revised down. Prime Minister Theresa May, now governing with the support of a small Northern Ireland party, badly needs a lift after months of infighting over Britain's planned withdrawal from the European Union, known as Brexit, and the resignation of 2 cabinet ministers in recent weeks. Recent polling suggested the government's popularity had fallen sharply among young people, while holding relatively steady overall. The finance minister's own political position is acutely vulnerable, and his room for maneuver limited, as he deals with slower than expected growth in productivity in Britain and as he prepares for the possibility that Brexit will significantly damage the economy. Mr.